Another lesson of Logos and Letters. My name is Liam. Let's continue on with chapter 5 of the categories. Still looking at substances here. Tokai dehe usia me epidekestai to malon kaito eton. Right, so he's repeating himself here. He's saying, it appears that, it seems that substance doesn't receive or take up greater or lesser. AKA, another way of translating that, if you didn't want to be so literal, another way of translating that idea is it doesn't admit of degrees. So one man, okay, compared to another man, isn't more or less man. All right. Now, I'm not saying that in the sense of manliness. I'm just saying as primary substance. Okay, I'll clarify that now. He isn't more primary substance than this like adolescent boy, and this adolescent boy isn't more primary substance than this adolescent girl. Okay, all primary substance does not admit of degrees. All right, let's continue. Lego de hoti usias ukasti malon usia kai eton usia tu tomen gari retai hoti estin. Right, and he's just clarifying here. He's just saying, and I'm not saying now that one substance compared to another substance is greater or lesser, for I've already spoken of this. Right, he's just clarifying that I've already said that one primary substance isn't more or less primary substance than another. Okay, and the reason why I'm focusing on primary substance is because you just wouldn't even say that of a species or a genus either. You know, you wouldn't say that animal is more a genus than plant. Okay, that's a recipe for disaster. Alla hotia kastai husia tooth hopperestin. All right, so we're each substance in relation to itself, malon kaeton, right? And he's also saying, so not just in comparison with others. So you notice in these examples here how I was giving examples in comparison to one another. So this man with this boy and this boy with this girl. So, but in relation to itself as well, it doesn't admit of degrees. Why is that important? Well, the first example that I was giving was important for things like human dignity and parity in existence and ontological things and so much more. But this new point that he's making, that it's not more, doesn't emit of degrees in relation to itself. This is a very interesting point because you cannot become more or less than what your primary substance already is. Okay, nothing is going to make you have more of this manness, of this humanness. Okay, wearing expensive clothes isn't going to increase your humanness. Okay, being beautiful or being ugly won't increase or decrease your humanness. Right, nothing will. It just is. It's fixed. It's unbothered by your appearance. It's unbothered by your wealth, your state of mind, your situation in life. If you just got promoted or if you just got fired from your dream job, if you're being gossiped about, if you're being praised, okay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect it. You know, what's that famous term? Inalienable. Okay, it's inalienable. All right, so it can't be taken away from you. Can't be added to either. So it's a very interesting point for future thought. Hoyo ni esti naute heusia anthropos ukestai malon kaeton anthropos. Right, and I just already gave this example. So just like, or for example, if you thought of some man, heusia anthropos, if the substance is man, ukestai malon kaeton anthropos. It can't be greater or less. It will not be greater or less man, more or less man. So In a polished English translation, you would say, man is not going to be more or less man at some other point. So even if he finds gold in the Victorian Highlands, if during the gold rush down here in Australia, his primary substance won't increase or decrease in relation to his good fortune, nor if he was to suffer terrible disease instead of finding gold. If he went down there and caught some kind of, like, not malaria, it's probably too cold down there for malaria, but some other disease, okay, from the poor conditions, his substance won't decrease or increase. Doesn't admit of degrees, okay? If he dies, now his substance will undergo substantial change and he'll stop being what he is, and he'll go from being a human, a man, to a corpse, okay? Which is not a human, okay? Because a human is a soul and a body united, okay? So if your soul leaves your body, you're no longer a human. Ute autos, huto. Oh my God, this is a tongue twister. Bear with me here. Ute autos, hutu, ute, heteros, heteru. One more time, I'm going to try to do that more naturally. Ute autos, hutu, ute, heteros, heteru. Yeah, nailed it. So, neither is the same thing compared to itself more or less than something else. So this is a complementary idea. So we've spoken about in isolation, this man won't be more man at some other point, okay, as a primary substance. And in comparison, one isn't more primary substance than another, all right? And to complement that idea, he's saying neither, the same. Oh, it's so hard to do. Literal translation will not work here. Okay, take all three. Say all three are sitting in the exact same scene. All right, they're all in the Australian bush. Maybe he's looking after these two. All right, let's say this guy is looking after these two. We're going to call him Ned Kelly, and he can be Banjo, and she can be, what would be a good name for her? Sheila. Her name's Sheila. Sheila, Banjo, and Ned are all in the bush together. In comparison one to the other, none of them will be found to be more primary substance than the next. Tick, we know that. In comparison to themselves, none of them will be more primary substance at a later date until they die. Tick, we know that. And we will never find that any of them experiences any change more so than any other member of their species or genus. Why? Because no primary substance whatsoever experiences more or less. Right? If it did, good God. What that would mean, if this wasn't the case, what we just covered here, this tongue twister here, if this wasn't the case, then it would mean that potentially by doing some sort of activity or experiencing some sort of prosperity or illness and misfortune, trials and tribulations, you would actually find that subjects, primary substance, would become other primary substance. They would go through substantial change all the time. So if this tree became drought stricken, it could turn into something different, like an actual other primary substance. And all the universe would actually be a flux, a continuous shift from one thing to another at all times. Chimeras and sphinxes would actually be a very common, almost universal experience for us and thing to be noted. But that's not the case, okay? We're not in some horror movie like that. So this is an articulation defense against that. So restin heteros heterumalon anthropos. Right, he's doubling down. He's really making this clear. For one man is not, for one human is not more man than another. Hosperto lukon heteron heteru malon esti kai eton lukon. Right, so this is an interesting point. Just as whiteness as a concept is not more or less than white than another whiteness. Now, you may think immediately, hang on, I know that there are brighter and duller kinds of white. Yes, you're correct. You're 100% correct. And it doesn't contradict what he just said. He's just saying whiteness as a concept, right? The concept of whiteness, right? If you say white and then you say another white, it's just the same, okay? Now, how does white manifest itself? Well, you can have quite a normal sort of luminous white here, and this could have been white at some point and then became dull. This could have been white at some point and been bleached by the sun into something different. All right, we've got white smoke. The different kinds of white here. So yeah, sort of like if you see these, they will change, of course, but the concept of white is shared between all people. Same with all other qualities, okay? So music or musical is shared between all people. We know what that is, right? So green or blues, the different colors of the stones, the reds, it's all shared by all humans across the world, all right? We all have our different words and our different language, but if you showed a picture of red to someone with eyes that function properly or are not impaired by some temporary misfortune, they can identify that red by using the term in their language. All right, same with green, same with white, same with gold, same with black, same with brown, same with gray, okay? The concept is fixed. That's the full stop. The concept of what it is, of white, of gray, you know, of whatever this color is, it's fixed. Okay, how it manifests itself differs, but the concept is fixed. Same with man. All right, this is really, these two here are sort of like double up on each other. They're saying that the concept of man is fixed. The concept of animal is fixed, okay? It's not more or less animal, all right? Just how you can have more or less heat, you can't have more or less animal, all right? So continuing on, kai kalon, right? Kai kalon heteron heteru malon kalon kai eton lagatai, right? So you can have the concept of white and it's fixed. You can have the manifestation of white and it changes in the physical world, and heat as well. Beauty as well is sort of fixed. You can have more or less beauty, but what is beautiful is fixed. Okay, so if different people might say she's beautiful, but she can share in more or less beauty because it's a quality. So qualities have degrees, but the concepts itself do not. We don't find that beauty is ugliness in one culture and ugliness is beauty in the other. They all have the same concept. They all have a word for what beauty is, right? And they have a word for what ugliness is. And the way they define the word beauty is something to do with attractiveness. It's something to do with charmingness and pleasing to the eye and pleasing to the senses, delightful to the senses, things like that. Okay, so the ideas are fixed. The concepts are fixed. How it manifests itself can admit of degrees. Okay, you can have a white that is more dull than another white. right? You can have a painting that is more beautiful than another painting, right? Kai auto de autu malon kai eton legetai, right? Now, even the same thing that was beautiful and the same thing that was white can at some other time be more or less so, right? And we know this firsthand, okay? So if we look maybe at these sails, actually there's one of a pyramid. I've got a painting of a pyramid here. Can't see it right now, but if you think of the pyramids, when they were built, they would have been shining, dazzling white. Would they not have been? Like shining, dazzling, bright, sparkling white. But over time, if you look at them now, they've been bleached by the sun. They've been bleached by the sun. So what was white at one point can become duller, and what was beautiful at one point can become less beautiful. Okay? Here. So you can see here, when it was freshly built, shining, dazzling, but then it becomes something that we realize today. If you have a look at it today, potentially you've already seen it today, it's less so. But the concept of white is unaffected, it's fixed. Okay? The concept of beauty is fixed across cultures and across all people. All right? So yeah, I hope that makes sense. And if I sound like I repeat myself at times, it's because any teacher worth their salt knows that sometimes for a student, in most cases, it's not that they don't understand the concept, it's the words that you used were not the right words. So, aka, that's another way of saying, say the same thing again in a slightly different way, and the listener will understand what you're saying. So I try to say the same thing twice or three times with different words, sometimes Germanic words, sometimes Latinate words, in order to help all students or all listeners, or whoever, understand it a little bit better. Okay? So that's, if I sound like I'm doubling down or tripling down on the same point, it's because I'm trying to articulate it in a different way so that no man is left behind, if I can use that expression. All right, so we might just leave it there for this lesson. It's a dense few sentences. We've covered a lot. And so substance doesn't receive more or less. Okay, we've covered that. We've covered that the primary substance of what you are won't increase or decrease no matter what you go through until you die, and that concepts such as white and beauty are fixed, but how they manifest in the world do change because they are accidents. Okay, qualities are accidents. Beauty is a quality found to exist in the substance, not as a part, obviously, and so on and so forth. So qualities change, the concepts are fixed. All right, so I'll leave it there. And thank you so much for your time. If you have other examples you'd like to share with other listeners and viewers, feel free to drop them in the comments, okay? It doesn't have to be limited to just what I say. Indeed, I encourage that it isn't limited to what I just say. If you would like more examples, if you like the full translations, if you would like written copy, obviously in the description that'll be there for you. But if this is enough for you, I'm glad, I'm happy. And if you're learning something new or interesting each time you watch these lessons, to me that is a triumph. To me that is the most important thing. So thank you, enjoy the rest of your day, whatever you're doing. And as always, si semper fortis and opere tuo. I'll see you next time.